What do you do when you lose someone you love? Some lost themselves in pain and grief, while others choose to lock their memory somewhere. For a teenager me, I choose to honor the memory by creating a space in my mind for that lost one. I believe that those who we cared about have never left us because they will continue to exist in our memory that comforts and supports us to move forward in life. On February 24, 2020, I lost my grandfather because of Parkinson's disease, which is a degenerative nervous system disease that currently has no cure. 8 years ago, when my grandfather was first diagnosed, I was shocked but hopeful because I thought that there was nothing that modern medicine can't cure. However, reality proved me wrong. At first, he started to feel weak on his legs and gradually his movement was restricted. Instead of comforting him, I mocked him about his strange gesture while walking, hoping that this would motivate him to move more. Then one day, he was out for his routine breakfast. All he got was the blasting of home phone following with everyone dressing and rushing to the door to the hospital. His lack of balance caused him to crash his motorcycle into a farm. This injury left him in a hospital with difficulties in recovering his injuries. Though healed, his health started decreasing tremendously as days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months. Next, my new normal was often accompanied by the constant ambulance siren with a group of anxious family members. On February 17th, I visited my grandparents in the hospital. I saw my grandmother was very upset because my grandfather's memory was fading. On that day, he temporarily forgot who my grandmother was. All the adults knew the time was coming. Inside the room, my grandfather reached out his hand and grabbed mine. He squeezed it, murdering my nickname. I didn't know that was the last time I saw him alive. He passed about 6 hours after holding my hand. However, I only received the news a week afterwards when my parents took me out for a hot pot. I didn't know whether it was the spiciness from the hot pot or it was my way of grieving. When my mom was finally spilling out the news with my dad's hand on her shoulder, I buried myself in a steaming and spicy food. The tears were rolling down on my face and my parents as well. The hot pot was just an excuse covering the pain we felt. The first week back on my regular weekend trip to my grandparents' house in Tainan, I was hit with complicated emotions. I hesitated to take a step into the door because I know I wouldn't see my grandfather's smile and his favorite question to ask with the ending of my nickname. "What grade did you get, Bonbon?" That was the first thing he said every weekend in Tainan. Also was his hand touching my hair and stroking while praising my effort with the nickname he gave me, Bonbon, which indicates that I am the shining star in his heart in Chinese. This feeling of loss continued to bother me throughout a semester at school. I failed a couple of tests because I didn't want to feel ambivalent about how I could never hear my grandfather's compliment in person. Eventually, I was forced to retake the assessments again. Otherwise, I would have really terrible grades for my second semester in the first year of high school. The stress overtook my complicated emotions. While I was looking at my makeup grades, my grandfather's image and motto emerged in my head. I felt that he was stroking my head. The memory of him was so strong that I could feel his praise in front of me. I suddenly felt warm and encouraged. I wanted to have that moment again because my grandfather clearly still lives inside me. It is up to me to decide how I want to process that emotion and memory of him. As long as I had good results to report to him, he always accepted wholeheartedly. He exists in everything I do mentally, not physically. If I fall into a funk, somehow he always shows up to rescue me. Slowly, I recover from the grief of losing my grandfather. Instead, I start to cherish the memory of him. Since everyone faces dramatic changes from the loss of the cared, being able to acknowledge the memories without the regrets supports one to move on, no matter how unreachable they are. After my grandfather died, it left me in deep despair about the purpose of life and made me grasp onto the memories of the old days. However, as I viewed the memories using a wider range, I still feel like I can hear his voice and his compliments. As the encouragement still lives within me, my grandfather never really left me. It is my harbor to the storm where I can hide for a bit before figuring out my next step. Therefore, I believe that those who we cared about have never left us because they will continue to exist in our memory that comforts and supports us to move forward in life. This I believe.